Everybody, nice to have some public back in our meeting. I'd like to open up the town of Montgomery IDA meeting for July 14th and call to order. I would like to introduce Ed Williams, who's on the telephone.
Here.
Good, Ed. And board members from my right, John Dixon, Randy Green, Bob Santo, and this gentleman right here, Don Berger. I always forget Don's name, I don't know why. I'm Jeff Chris, chairman of the board. Our council, Robert McLaughlin, and Matt's hiding down here, Matt Stoddard, board member. Thanks for the help. Our secretary, Sue Hatton, welcome. And I'm not gonna forget Connor Eckert tonight. And thank you, Billy Iverson, for putting this out on the live waves. I feel like a disc jockey or something. Our first item to discuss is the June 9th meeting minutes, as well as the public hearing transcript from June 22nd, which was a special meeting. We probably need to vote on those individually. Bob?
Actually, Mr. Chair, you only need really vote on the minutes.
Okay.
Because the transcript is a matter of...
It's what it is.
It is what it is, and it was posted.
Oh, okay. I would ask for any discussion, corrections on the June 9th meeting minutes by the board. Or a motion to approve as written.
I make that motion.
By John Dixon, thank you. Second to that motion.
I'll make it.
Don Berger. Ed, how do you vote on those minutes?
Yes.
And can I do the rest by show of hands? The rest of the board, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried for the meeting minutes approval. Our next item is a consideration of an approving resolution for the corridor study conducted by Delaware Engineering. Going to ask our executive director, Connor, to update the board on changes we've made since our last meeting, and also discuss a number of letters we received over the course of the last few weeks. Connor.
Thank you, Jeff. So over the last few weeks, some changes to the draft professional services agreement are in scope. So they've really, I guess, more so described the market study in an in-depth way, and went deeper into that, describing the benefits, especially in a post-COVID-19 economy, examining the market and trends in the market could be valuable to an economic development agency and to the town. And over the last few days, we've received dozens of comments, which today I've worked to get back to everyone. As of 4:45, I believe I responded to 15 out of the 16 emails that we received officially. And I tried to sum some of the main themes throughout the emails. One being that it is duplication of taxpayer money. But as council said, the IDA funds are not actually directly taxpayer money. It is fees from projects. And it is also different in scope in the comprehensive plan, a more in-depth look at a specific area of town, as opposed to the broad overview of the whole jurisdiction as a whole. Another main question was, why are we doing the study? The study is an objective analysis of a specific area that is a prudent approach to economic development planning. It is an opportunity to show us what we can do in the town of Montgomery that fits with the kind of development that we desire as a town. So what I've heard is it's justification for more warehouses, but in my eyes, it's justification to diversify. It's a means to show us other forms of development. And looking at past corridor studies, there are options given based on objective analysis and market trends that are beyond just a warehouse. Another theme I was seeing is the study is going to hurt the town. The study has no authority. It is strictly informative. The Comprehensive Planning Committee This comprehensive plan, if adopted by the town, is the rule when it comes to land use and zoning, and this is strictly informative, made to inform the IDA, the town, and hopefully the comprehensive plan committee on economic development potential in a specific area of the town. And lastly, there have been some comments on the fact that the map was said to be incorrect. It is important to note that this map was a draft map and no analysis was done. It was merely a means to show what can be done from an illustrative standpoint. And those were, to the best of my ability, me summarizing the main themes of the 16 or so emails that I responded to today.
And Connor, we had some concern that we might be infringing on property owners' rights by studying the town. And you and I talked that the Comprehensive Plan Committee is also studying the whole town. And as a landowner in town, have not been asked by the Plan Committee if they can study my property. And honestly, I know that they have a right to study it, just as public documents allow us to look at available information on properties around the town. And in our case, we align it with our mission for economic development in the business community. So can you follow up on that a little bit, Connor?
Right, so the comprehensive plan is examining properties in the town as a whole. And I do not believe that the comprehensive plan members are asking every resident or owner of a parcel if they could examine their land for comprehensive plan purposes. So this is an informative study based on publicly available data that will, once again, hopefully, move our mission forward of diversifying the town of Montgomery economy to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Connor. And I'm not accepting comments from the audience tonight. We've interacted with the town board, the comprehensive plan committee, members of the public. Connor's had numerous phone calls. And this is an internal discussion of the board to evaluate our consideration of the approving resolution. But I have asked the Mary Beth Biacani from Delaware Engineering, who was called out in one letter in particular, to come up to the mic and just respond to those comments as part of our due diligence to cover what was asked of us in those letters. Mary Beth, welcome.
Nice to see everyone. No, my letter. I think I'm far enough away from everyone to take this off so you can hear me, hopefully. My name is Mary Beth Biaconi. I was here last month to talk about this project. And I understand there were some concerns about my being on Orange County Partnership Board relative to my work on this study. So I wanted to address that directly. I am on that board. I am not a member of the executive committee, and in that capacity, I don't make any decisions about really anything. I'm simply a member of the board. My intent in being on that board, just so everybody is clear, most of the work that we do is municipal. As I think I've stated before, somewhere around 85% of what we do is municipal. The other 25% is industrial. We do things like breweries and toothpaste factories and very exciting stuff like that. We're civil engineers. My intent in being on the Orange County Partnership Board was to bring some perspective. When I look at the list of people who are on that board, it's many people who are business owners, there are real estate people, there are contractors, people who build things, there's a lot of real estate interest, there are bankers, but there didn't seem to be a voice of someone saying, from a public perspective, and again, I'm a consultant, I work for public bodies, but just kind of in a big picture sense, what are the things that are faced by municipalities when we're looking at economic development? Because what we do is infrastructure, that's usually one of the big impacts. So my intent being there is to provide some perspective to that board. I'll also add that I am on the executive committee of Pattern for Progress, Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress. I've been on their board for many years, and I am on that executive committee, and in that capacity I do make a lot of decisions or help make decisions about the direction of that agency in their work, but folks may be familiar, they're a regional planning agency. Their objective is to do things that improve quality of life in the Hudson Valley. And for me, that's important. They attempt to study things and publish information that's useful and assist municipalities. So that's another board that I am on. And the last board that I'm on is I am a trustee on the historic board of the village I grew up in Central New York, which has a population of 400 people. And I'm currently the treasurer of that board because there are 5 people in the historic society. So you need everyone to do something. So I don't see this as a conflict of interest. I rather see this as bringing together many different interests that can be helpful and informative to the town. This is the town idea. We're working for the town. I kind of see this as a big picture effort to assist the town and support the town.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Any questions for Mary Beth from the board?
Yes, I do. Hi, Mary Beth. It's my understanding you do sit on the board for the Orange County Partnership, and you're the senior project manager for the Orange County Partnership?
No. Good heavens, no.
Well, that's what the website says.
I think that's just the title that's on my business card.
That's a pretty good title.
So yeah, I'm actually a partner in my firm, and my work there is that I'm a senior project manager. So I think the way the partnership does its website, they simply say what everyone's job is. So you could go look at one of the bankers maybe, and it might say vice president. That doesn't mean that that person's the vice president of the Orange County Partnership. They're the vice president of their bank. So I do not get paid by the partnership. I have no legal relationship with them. I sit on their board. That's all.
Okay. So you said that you don't believe that there's a conflict. I think you're probably well aware of the distrust that the residents of this township has had with the Orange County Partnership. So it does have a bearing here, from my point of view, that we've had 2 years of this, and to see this happening at this immediately after the Amazon project is fulfilled, and here we are now with the corridor study. And as you're probably aware of, on yesterday, the Orange County Partnership came out with this. Are you aware of this from Maureen Hallahan, a letter?
I don't, it may be in my email somewhere, but.
Okay, so what this says, what it does, it talks about the town of Montgomery,
Okay,
and it talks about a 1.2 million square foot warehouse in the corridor.
I don't know anything about it, being 100% honest, because it's not my job.
Well, so you could understand how residents and myself could have a problem with
So here's what I will say. I have been working in this field, I worked in transportation planning. Initially I worked for the Pentagon when I first got to school. And I worked for transportation planning in New York City for many years, and I moved to the Albany area, and I've been doing civil engineering since for 24 years. I can say that with certainty because my baby is 24 years old and I moved there when he was an infant. I've spent my career helping communities. The work that I do is objective. It is based on facts. I think my record and the record of the work that I do, we worked in Walden here in the community. We're working for the county on the sewer project. We work for many municipalities. We welcome giving you references if you'd like to talk to people to find out if the quality of our work is transparent, if we are open, if we try to guide or direct any particular thing towards anything. You are welcome to look at our background and my personal background. I have no problem with that because I can stand here very firmly before you and say that I have zero interest in directing any kind of economic development of any kind, any property or any I don't. That is not what I do. I dedicated my life to doing work for public entities. That is what I do. So now on the other hand, if I understand that there's a history here and the board is concerned, that is entirely up to you. As I said the last time I was here, we were asked to come and talk about doing this type of study because we've done it in other places. We've done it in Greene County, we've done it in Sullivan County, we've done it in Rensselaer County, in Saratoga County. They all found a lot of value in this type of study. If you don't and you don't want to proceed, that's fine. I'm a consultant. I do the work that we are contracted to do.
Mary Beth, do you remember the last comment you made to me at the meeting you had here last month?
I don't specifically know.
You referred to that seal. And
Yes.
you came walking toward me and said, your seal says you're a transportation hub.
It does, it's a very striking seal, I'm not aware of any other that looks like it.
Do you remember my comment back to you?
I don't.
I said to you, and that's a problem in this town, that seal.
Yeah, you certainly are in the crosshairs and you've experienced it, without question. So, from my perspective, because I'm a planner, a master's degree in planning, now is the time to plan and control the development of your community, decide what you want. And so you're obviously taking those steps. You have a land use moratorium in place for certain types of development. You're engaged in a comprehensive plan. Your IDA board is looking at doing some economic development planning, market study planning. In my world, those are all very good things.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on the board?
Quick question.
Randy.
I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Do you know when Sullivan County did theirs? Sorry, I'm talking.
We finished that study, I want to say, in 2018.
Okay, so very recently.
It's that's the
Okay.
most recent one that we worked on.
Okay.
The ones we did in green would be 2000, probably 9,
Okay.
10, that kind of time frame. Well, actually, you know what? I'm wrong. They were right before the financial crash. So it was right before 2008, because everything came crashing to an end with the financial crisis.
Okay. Another hot button question, I think. When you say who you were asked to come, I think that's the burning question, is who asked you to come.
This nice gentleman is
Okay,
sitting
I
right
just
here.
want to have that on record, that's who asked you to come here. I
Yes.
think that's a question that everybody has, so that's a simple answer. If we move forward with this, there's been a lot of chatter about the 2008 study. Also, I know your firm didn't do that one. There was a partial or some parts of the 2008 pieces of 208 and 17K.
There were 2.
Okay, is
I
that
have
something
them- I
that we
have them right
can
here.
incorporate and look at and maybe have answers?
Absolutely.
questions
So
on?
these, just for everybody, because I know people can't see them, and unfortunately I'm juggling here with my glasses back on, because I'm not. One of them is entitled Managing Growth, a white paper concerning development within the New York State Route 211 and Route 416 corridors, town of Montgomery, New York. It says first draft September 2007, and it was produced by Planet and Crawford Engineering Associates. The other one was conducted by Bean Planning Associates, it's dated December 12, 2007. And it says land use and zoning report 17K and 208 intersection and environs, town of Montgomery. I'm glad you asked about these because I find them, the chairman shared them with me, I find them to be really interesting. I don't know how many, if any, of the recommendations that were made in these 2 companion studies were affected in terms of zoning and the recommendations. But I will say that it seems as though all of the issues that were present in 2007 are present today, if not more so, if not multiplied by 100. There's discussion in here about concerns about residential development being converted into large-scale big box.
Mhm.
There's concerns, by the way, those 2 areas are essentially there, we're talking about the Orange County Airport area, which we did add to the study. That was one of the other changes that we did make, and to request, which I think is very smart. It's an area that's certainly prime for development. And then 17K. Many of the concerns that we're hearing today are enlisted in these studies. So clearly, more needs to be done. These are obviously old at this point. They need to be updated, they need to be reevaluated. But yes, the idea here is not to reinvent the wheel. The idea is to say, clearly, in the past, people said these are areas where there could be development and we're very concerned. So that's the reason these studies were created. But they're from 2007.
I have one more question while we're
Yeah.
here. So, before the study was done and during the study, the concern was the building and the big warehouses. But part of that study, and I did not look at both of them, I only looked at one, was the 416 and 211 corridors. So now we know that we did have a lot of building there. So if that was a concern then, and that was one of the reasons that we did that study, but we got that stuff anyway, how do we do it differently? What was done wrong? How can we change it so that when we invest in this study, we can take everything from it that we need to move forward?
That is an amazing question, a good question. So this study goes through and this study actually did a lot of very similar things. I don't know if you can see this, but those are little images of potential build out of the farm, of different things, same concept, right? Showed maximum, so here's one of them, description of development of concept drawing for airport industrial park area, 1.991 million square feet. Okay, it's big stuff, right? So the recommendations were change the zoning.
And then we never did.
And
We're gonna be
as far
far
as
short,
I
that's
know-
what I wanna know. If we're gonna invest in
Yeah.
it, how are we gonna get every single cent and all of the power and the knowledge from this document?
Yeah, there was a lot of,
Could I jump in, Mary Beth?
yes, please do.
To assist in answering the question, I think part of the answer is to do it in coordination with the comprehensive plan committee, have that information available. We don't act on that, the plan committee and then the town board does. But to have that information, those dynamics, the innovation of new businesses, I reviewed that study myself, and it talks about some smaller lots, smaller businesses. That's not really in the plan right now, and I think we can show validity and market value to that if we move ahead with this study.
That's exactly it. I mean, these two studies clearly showed that this was a concern all this time ago. It's still a concern. Now you've seen some real development happen here that certainly people are very concerned about, and with good reason. So that's really feeds into why do a comprehensive plan? Why do this kind of study? So that you can then say, this is what we want. And I think to Connor's point, the idea here, if you, it strikes me that you've had a lot of interest for warehousing and distribution centers here. That came from outside of your community, clearly. You guys need to say what you want. So that's, again, part of this idea is what are people from the outside seeing as the purpose of the market study? What your comprehensive plan is, what do you want? And then where is that intersection between those things? How do you preserve and protect farmland? So that, because I'm from a very rural area where I've seen farm after farm after farm be sold for other purposes. It crushes me to see that. But it happens because there's no land use regulations and there's no way for these farmers to be economical with what they're doing.
Right.
Plan for it and do something about it. That's the concept.
Thank you.
Couple more things, Mayor Beth.
Hold on, Don. I'd like to let others go first. John, did you have anything?
No,
You're good, Matt? You okay? Bob? And Williams, if you can hear me, did you have any questions of Mary Beth at this point? Oh. You will speak up. Go ahead, Don. Thank you.
This is pretty much a two-part question. You had mentioned earlier, a moment ago, about how we need to speak up. We've been speaking up for over 2 years, and nobody listens. With that being said, can you explain to the board, or maybe me, and maybe the audience here, what's the urgency with this study? It really has, in my opinion, dropped on this desk here, and we're being asked to proceed with this in a rather rapid fashion. So, as you know, last month my conversation with you was about the comprehensive plan and allowing that committee to at least get their foot in the ground and start working on something. They really haven't been able to do that yet because of the pandemic that we're in. All right, I think we all could agree with that. So I guess, what is the urgency that this board, your company, should work side by side with the comprehensive plan? The comprehensive plan are going to make decisions. I would think that based on some of those decisions, you could move forward on your study. It would be easier to move forward with your study, because I'm thinking, why would we want you to say we hire you today? What's the sense in moving forward on that study when a comprehensive plan hasn't made a single decision yet?
So I'll start with the last question and work my way back. Because this is an objective study. It's, as we said, it's from the top down, it's not from the bottom up. So it's from the top down, it's not from the bottom up. So it's not related in that respect to the comprehensive plan. So there's that. Comprehensive plan folks can use that top-down information to help make their decisions. But it's a top-down, it's intended to be objective, right? So that's that. I personally am a very busy person, and I'm not here saying you have to make a decision, right? That's not my thing. But I will say a couple of things about time, right? So right now, I do think you have some breathing room in terms of development interest for probably two big reasons. One is you have a moratorium, which, as we know, can't last forever. That judges get kind of excited about that kind of stuff, right? But the second thing is because the pandemic, people are sort of regrouping and businesses are making different decisions. But there will come a day, I think, when the pandemic will be less of a concern and you will have that development pressure back on you again, right? And I don't know when that is. I don't know that we have a person on the planet who can tell you when that is. But it's probably sooner rather than later, because if it's not, our economy is going to be terrible. It will be worse than the Great Depression. So let's assume it's relatively soon. This will take a little time, so there's that, right? It's just kind of fitting in with that. The other thing I will tell you is because we are working on the town's water and sewer infrastructure, one of the things that we were going over today in the office was we were evaluating the sewer system that the town has. And folks need to be aware that there's a wastewater treatment plant that's about 25 years old that was intended to have about a 20-year service life. It's not built of materials that can sort of be refurbished. It basically needs to be replaced. The town started working on this back in the early 2000s, hired an engineer. They designed a very large facility. I believe it was a 500,000 gallon big facility. The current one is like 100,000 gallons a day, so much larger. And got it all the way kind of through, and the community said, wow, that's a really expensive project, and decided not to proceed with that project. And that was in 2005 or 2006. Recently, the town engaged another engineer who redesigned it for a smaller plant, a 250,000 gallon plant, which again is significantly larger than the one you have right now, in anticipation of growth. Because again, you're gonna spend a lot of money and you don't wanna build a thing on the razor's edge. That's not good environmentally, or it's not good planning. Today, we were going over those plans for our work for the town, and one of the things that became really apparent is that if you think about this, we have a system of pipes underneath the ground that conveys all the sewage to the wastewater treatment plant where it gets treated and discharged to the Hudson River. That network of pipes was not planned. It happened over time as people decided to connect, this development, connect over here, this one over there, and they were all happening at different times. So while they all underwent engineering review and they all met code, it wasn't a plan. So what we discovered in looking at this was that you can build a 250,000 gallon a day wastewater treatment plant if you want to. You cannot convey 250,000 gallons to that treatment plant. You don't have the pipe network to do it. So the reason to do this is because it does fall in line with the town's work on the water system and the sewer system to try to anticipate where, who, how does it get paid for, when, all of these kinds of things. You may, as a result of this study, you may not need a 250,000 gallon a day wastewater treatment plant. You may need a significantly smaller one, be less expensive, less for taxpayers to pay for. That's one of the reasons. So we have to do that type of analysis anyway to complete our civil engineering work for the town. But this process is really helpful in informing that. So there's all of these things kind of coming together brings more benefit. It's more valuable than the one-off approach or sequencing them. So from my perspective, those are important things. I will also add that to the extent that there is any federal stimulus or any state stimulus as a result of the coronavirus stuff, if it is at all like 2009, what we learned was that communities that had plans in place and knew what they wanted to do could go get that money to make their changes and invest in what they wanted to. We learned that lesson in spades. We had projects that were already going forward, already financed. That money dropped on the state. The state called and said, could you use this money? We said, yeah, absolutely. people were gonna pay X dollars, now they're gonna pay X dollars less? Definitely, but it was because they had plans. So I would add that, again, it's not, we're all gonna die tomorrow if we're gonna do this, but it's just in the grand scheme of things, as you think about where you sit as a community, planning takes time, proper planning takes time and consideration. And that's, I think, a reason for you to consider if you want to do something like this, which again, you don't have to, lots of people don't. But if you want to do something like this to help you, now is a good time to do it.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question to Bob. With the interest from the residents on this whole thing, with all the letters that have been put out, and I gather most of the people in the audience over there, I'm really curious as why I think Jeff had mentioned it earlier about the public being involved. And I just want to go back to on page 6 of the book in which you gave us, and just help me out with this, I'm not really sure. It says, pursuant of 859-A of the Act, prior to issuing any debt and or granting any tax exemptions collectively equaling in the aggregate more than $100,000, you must hold a public hearing. Could you explain that?
Sure. What that section refers to is actions of the agency with respect to a project. So if the agency is going to issue bonds, issue debt for a project, and the project falls into one of the 11 categories that are in the statute section that talks about what projects are, and that's in that book as well. Or if you're providing or considering providing financial assistance, which the agency can do 3 types that we've talked about: a pilot agreement, a tax exempt, mortgage tax exemption, and a sales tax exemption. If the aggregate of the debt or the aggregate of that financial assistance is contemplated to be at least $100,000 or more, that section of the statute states that you must hold a public hearing to hear public comments. It doesn't apply to this case because this is simply a contract to do a study.
Okay, so the term issuing of any debt, this would be a debt to us, no?
No, the statute, I'm sorry, I took this off. The statute refers to debt as the issuance of bonds. Bonds is a debt. You're issuing bonds, your obligation to pay to raise capital in the public market to provide to a project as a conduit. That's the issuance of debt. Okay? Your name, the IDA's name is on those bonds. You offload the obligation to pay those bonds to the project beneficiary, but it's still IDA bonds. That's the issuance of debt. You're not issuing debt here. You're using proceeds, so I understand where the conflict or the misunderstanding could come into play, but you're using assets of the entity. You're not issuing debt.
We're just spending money.
You're spending money, not issuing debt.
Okay. I just,
It's a great question.
yeah, I just, I mean, it's, the whole thing's rather confusing, and my point is that I see such a public outcry, and, it somewhat bothers me that they're not allowed to speak on the matter.
The decision to speak or not speak is the decision of the chair, the executive director of the board, okay? I think what, the written comments have been received. I think the executive director has summarized the responses. I've looked at those written comments as well, and I've discussed them with the chair and the executive director. I think the executive director did an adequate job in responding to those comments just prior in this meeting. The only thing that we haven't talked about is the FOIL requests, which for this map, which was never a record of the agency, and therefore I understand the request for it, but if the response is there is no record, I think the agency has received 6 or 7 repetitive requests, and those requests were even made to the town, which is not the right entity. The FOIL request should be issued to the agency, and the secretary is Sue Hayden, and yet those requests are going to the town. There's no map in the town records, and there's no map in the agency records as well. So, with respect to FOIL, the agency must, under FOIL, disclose records that are in its possession unless there's some sort of exemption. The map that was used as an illustration, which is a draft at best, is not a record. Even if it were a record, and I noted this to you in an email, if it were a record as part of a study, okay, then unless the producer says this is somehow protected from FOIL, some sort of trade secret, some sort of, would provide their competitors with an unfair advantage because it discloses some sort of formula that Delaware Engineering has a trademark on, or, which is kind of weird, that wouldn't happen. But other than that, once it becomes part of the study, then it's open to the public. It's a FOILable document. It's a record.
I got the answer. Thanks.
Okay.
Let's talk for 1 second about the map, just because I think there's a lot of confusion about it.
Yes.
I have a staff of GIS people in my office. So Geographic Information Systems is very powerful. People may be aware of this. It's mapping, right? So it's physical things in the world that are tied to databases of publicly available records. Those databases include things like, is there a presence of a federal wetland? Is there a presence of a state wetland? Is there, we have topography available to us, so we can look at things like steep slopes, things that are over, say, 15%. There's stream corridors that are mapped. There's tons of public available information. Some of that information is real property information. The Real Property Service provides very robust data about property information. All that map was literally, I walked over and said, you spent more than 5 minutes on this, I promise you you're fired. You're gonna make just a big illustration for me of all of the properties that are over 20 acres that are along that corridor. I don't care what the zoning is, I don't care if there's something already built on them. I just want an illustration to show how, frankly, how much at risk you are if you don't plan this corridor. That's all the map was. So literally anyone who has access to GIS can make the exact same map I did. They can go, they can pick, and I picked 20 acres. It was random. I could have said 10, I could have said 5, I could have said 50. I just simply, so even to call it a draft is to give it way too much credit. It was, you know, an illustration. Again, if you didn't have all of that area, we wouldn't even be talking about this. It wouldn't be a concern at all. That was an illustration to show how, what is present on that corridor. I started my presentation last time by saying, I'm not from here. As an outsider, when I look at it, if I put my people are going to build a lot of things hat on, there's a lot of land you can build things. That was the purpose of that illustration. So it was literally nothing more than that. Anyone, if you have access to New York State GIS, and in fact there's all kinds of mappers that you don't even need special software for, you can go and create the map yourself. It was very, very, very simple. It wasn't intended to be anything. I do know though that having done this for many, many years, if you stick a map up in front of a group of people with very specific information, lines and colors and things, everybody starts going, well, why is that there? Why is this there? Why is that there? Well, frankly, we don't know because we haven't done the study yet. We haven't done the analysis. It was an illustration. Just again, because I was looking at your corridor and saying, wow, you have no wonder you're attracting development interest. You have a lot of land that's potentially developable. It didn't look at whether it was residential or already built. It was just that simple. So even calling it a draft is giving it too much credit. It was ink on a sheet of paper that was intended to illustrate, to your point, why do a study here? Why now? That was the purpose of it. I had one copy of it. It was in my car until I played golf the other day, and it got completely covered in mud and dirt, and it is now in trash. But I promise you, if we do a study, you will end up with maps, you will end up with objective analysis, and that will eventually become a public document.
And you will have public input before there's a project here knocking on our door that says, the zoning says we can do this, and you were saying that you've been having no one listen to your concerns for 2 years. This gives us an opportunity to be in front of the curve, to point out those concerns and be able to help offer information to the Comprehensive Plan Committee to meet our mission of the Montgomery IDA, to figure out appropriate business development. That's what Connor's job title is.
And by the way, that same map is in this 2007 study. I didn't realize it, but it's almost identical.
Oh, really?
So, because I didn't look at this before I made the map, so this is not, it's a planning tool. Nothing.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I'm gonna ask Bob a couple of questions related to
We are
the
not blue
resolution.
boxes. Don't treat us as blue boxes.
Jeff, I have a question. Are you gonna let me talk?
No, I've stated already, there's not public comment tonight.
Okay, but I'm an elected official, so you're not gonna let me talk right now?
That's correct.
Okay, then I
But
suggest you tell me.
we've heard, but
I am
please
not-
sit down,
No,
you're not
I-
recognized.
I am not sitting down.
I'm gonna call
You
for a
have not-
recess to this
you have
meeting
not
for a
addressed
moment.
my letter. When are you going to address my letter?
What do you recommend, Bob?
That's up to the chair.
You did
Yeah,
not
well,
address my letter,
I'm
and
not-
I'm asking you to address my letter right now.
Connor, did you respond to her letter? And
No.
Mary Beth responded.
You or Brian, Supervisor Mark, who I addressed my letter to, neither one of you guys have addressed my letter. So I am standing right here now asking you to address my letter.
I'm not recognizing
I
it.
think he has.
No, I never got an address, a comment to my letter.
To address.
Can I see it?
Yeah. Or, send it to me. It's yesterday.
No, this was sent this morning. This is the letter that was sent this morning. Sorry, that's my notes.
Do I see your letter?
Absolutely, and I got it.
One thing that's incorrect, I just asked Mary Beth to respond to one of the questions in your letter, and she did.
No, I said you addressed, I'm sorry, you did address that, but you did not address the other points that are in that letter. And not only that, you stated faulty comments before during this meeting. You did not address the CPC.
I'm not recognizing you.
Well, I'm
Kristen.
standing right here. So, yes, the comprehensive plan, nobody from this board has addressed the comprehensive plan committee as a whole.
Well,
As a whole, have you guys talked to the comprehensive plan committee?
Councilwoman Brown, we've had a couple conversations with the chairman of the committee, as well as your planner, in an effort to, if this project does move forward, create a working relationship. I mean,
So,
Yeah.
the town board meeting, at the last town board meeting, Supervisor Marr said that we were supposed to have a presentation, he would work with Mary Beth and have a presentation and invite the core members that you said, Chairman Chris, during your last presentation, was supposed to be the planning board, the IDA, the CPC, and us. And if we're supposed to work together, then I believe that we need to be in a room together to discuss this. That's what I asked for, and that's what I'm not afforded. So that's why I want to know why it was not addressed.
I'm not responding.
So you're not responding to an elected official, or to
Correct.
the members of the
We
community that.
have in many ways, and we're an independent board. You
That's
can go back to your,
mine
you
is
can go
not-
back to your board and get me removed.
I will ask for your resignation.
I would
Right
ask
now,
for
you
yours,
wanna hand
because
it
you're
over?
either a resident or you're an elected official, and in my opinion, an elected official doesn't come here and act like that.
I am
You'd be
both.
disrespectful and rude. Are you a resident or are you elected?
I am
There's no
both.
ethics in
And
the
what
town of
capacity are
Montgomery,
you in?
none, excuse me, none. None, very few ethics. You guys gotta look for the people. There's only few people here. That's why I'm getting off the ethics board. There's no ethics in this town. And this has to change. And it'll change in the election year.
Inappropriate, Bob.
It was wrong.
Go downstairs and
Can
get
you
the.
stop the live stream or end the meeting?
You can discontinue the meeting right now?
Postpone the meeting.
What is postponing you gonna do? This is the same joke and the same thing over and over again. This puts us in the driver's seat. I get why people are upset about it. I get the hesitation. I get the distrust of Maureen and the Orange County Partnership. I understand it, but that is our job to invest in economic development. And it needs to be safe and it needs to be smart. And this does that. And I'm sorry that the means sometimes don't justify, the ends don't always justify the means, but in this particular situation, I do believe that the means justify the end. Doesn't matter where it came from.
I make a motion to postpone the item of on voting this today, postpone it to the next meeting.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? I'll call for a vote. Matt?
No.
John?
No.
Randy?
No.
I'm a no. Ed Williams? Could you hear the motion in second? Bob, your vote?
No, yes, Madam, yes.
Don?
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
We have a 4-2 against that motion. So with that in mind, can you hear us, Ed? I realize, but as a courtesy to each board member, I'm asking for his vote, Bob.
Yes, I understand.
Yes.
Did you hear the motion? Did you hear the motion?
If you want to repeat it again, I can hear it. Go ahead.
Yes, the motion was to suspend our decision on the corridor study tonight.
Motion to postpone, that's it.
A motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone, is that correct?
To postpone our decision, yes, we have
Yes.
four opposed and 2 for the motion.
Yes.
So Ed votes yes.
Here.
What's your vote? Or,
Yes or no?
I don't know if you can,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, he votes for the postponement. We have 4 against and 3 for. So I would suggest, Bob, we move forward with the resolution.
So to address the councilwoman, with due respect, and I mean that sincerely, it is entirely inappropriate for a councilwoman of the town board to come before this body and threaten an agency chair.
When did I threaten
I think you did.
him? No. I just wanted an answer, I didn't threaten
You
him.
said that you would,
He said he's gonna hand in
Yes.
his resignation, and I said I would vote.
I did not say I would hand in my resignation. I said you go back to your board and get me
Okay,
removed.
I thought you said that you would hand in your resignation, so I
You
apologize
never
for
said
that, and I
that.
said I would accept it.
so.
Never said that.
It's entirely appropriate, with due respect, okay, for a councilwoman of the town board to threaten the chair of another town entity. It's entirely inappropriate, okay? Potentially criminal, but
That's why I
entirely,
apologize.
well,
Okay, because I
potentially
misunderstood.
criminal, you can't apologize for that type of activity.
I will talk to
So-
I'll talk to.
So
board
I
in
don't,
executive session.
I don't offer an opinion on that, but I do think that the ethics board may take that up with you, but that's not my role. Okay, because I think that's a violation of the town's ethics board, okay?
So that's
What is-
fine, but on
what-
record, I.
You are not recognized. This is an independent board. You're addressing me. You-
Okay, fine, since you're speaking to me, I will tell you that I will apologize to him because I misunderstood. I thought he said that he would hand in his
did not.
resignation. That's how I took it.
You
So
threatened
could
him.
you convey, because I'm not recognized, that I apologize because I misunderstood?
I will do that,
Thank you. Now, I will prove that, now.
okay? With respect to this letter, and again, I did look at this morning, or whenever this came in today, earlier today.
Yeah,
I believe the executive director addressed every point except for the penultimate paragraph. Okay? I don't believe the executive director can address the penultimate paragraph because that did not contain anything that was within his knowledge.
what's the what paragraph?
Penultimate,
What's the penultimate?
next to last.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
That, saying that you had a conversation with the town board, I don't believe the executive director was at that town board meeting. So
No,
I
we wouldn't
can't,
do
so I don't think it's appropriate for this agency or the executive director or any of the members, again, with due respect, in your position as a councilwoman, to respond to that paragraph simply because no one here has any knowledge, as I understand it. I do think that the supervisor, who I think has responded, should be consulted based on that paragraph. And I expect that since there's a board meeting 2 days from now,
Yep,
that you will raise it then.
yep, it won't be. I talked to the supervisor today
Okay.
about this, but that's why I was hoping for a response from the agency that I was never afforded or
Well,
granted.
again, with due respect, as a councilwoman and an elected official, okay, I think the executive director attempted to respond to all of these points. The agency invited the consultant, who has been treated inappropriately by the members of the audience, in my opinion, to come here and give her honest responses as a professional engineer who has done this for 25, 24 years by her own statement. And she has been treated inappropriately by the members of the public that are here, in my opinion. But I do believe, except for the penultimate, except for the next to last paragraph, every point in your letter has been addressed by the executive director.
Okay, I actually gave you the last copy. I thought I had another copy.
I have it in my email, so that's fine. So
Matt, did you have a comment?
I just think the council and the councilwoman, if we need to get back to our meeting.
I agree.
Enough's enough on this. With all due respect, you're a great person. But we do gotta get back to our meeting, please.
Okay.
Bob, to carry on, looking at our resolution, one question I had, and I expect we'll list every letter author in this resolution.
So, to that point, Mr. Chair, the letters should be made part of the minutes of the meeting,
Okay.
okay? And then the executive director has responded or addressed each of the points raised in those letters. I think the invitation to have the consultant come in specifically and address certain points that were directed to her and to answer additional questions by the board as part of the minutes also addresses many of the comments that were raised in those written comments. And then finally, the map was, which was the subject of numerous FOIL requests, was also addressed. The one point in the proposed resolution that's before the board that I would like to add is that as part of that, and I will amend it in the written resolution, is that if you are to proceed with this type of contract, it is a type 2 action under seeker. Again, seeker requires this board to review from an environmental standpoint what the impact of your decisions are. A contract like this has been designated by DEC as a type 2 action. Type 2 actions are those that are deemed by DEC to be ministerial, or in the case where there's an actual project such as small impact, that they will have little or no impact on the environment. And so the entry into a contract such as this for a corridor study is a type 2 action, and it was omitted in the draft resolution, and if it's voted on by the board, I will add that to the written resolution that's presented to the secretary for signature.
And Bob, would you just review this resolution for the board with the highlights?
Sure. What this resolution does is authorize the entering into a contract with Delaware Engineering, DPC, for the conducting of a corridor study. This contract is consistent with Section 858 of your authorizing act, which is consistent with the purpose to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, improving, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, commercial, research, and recreational facilities in the town, to advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, and economic welfare of the people of the state. The purpose of the corridor study is also to support projects in the town that could create or retain jobs or promote private sector investment utilizing the statutory powers of the agency, and achieve a goal for the immediate and long-range protection and enhancement, growth, and development of the town. Other IDAs in the state have authorized contracts such as this for a corridor study or a market study. It's consistent with the agency's mission. This contract that is also in the packet has been negotiated by the executive director. I believe he obtained a price reduction as well as a scope enhancement.
We have one addition.
You did not. I'm sorry about that. I was mistaken. But this does provide that the scope will be Route 17K corridor, and which will include the Orange County airport airport area.
Yeah, that really was the result of the negotiation with the
So
executive
I apologize. I
director.
was confused on that.
So it's gonna go from 17K from the town of Montgomery and town of Newburgh line all the way down, correct? All the way through the village to the end of
It says Route 17K generally from I-84 exit 6 to the village of Montgomery, and also including lands around the Orange County airport.
we discussed making it straight through the village to the ends of the town of Montgomery on 17K, so if that can be clarified.
Well, we, in our discussions with Mary Beth and Connor, we purposely left it a little more vague on just which areas would be studied.
That's something I didn't read, I'm sorry.
The revised agreement was slightly modified along those lines.
Okay.
When, and thank you for reminding us about those other studies. But when we looked at the 416-211 corridor, we realized that really was a more important area. So we focused that in
So
with.
keep it within, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, when they talk about the Orange County Airport, what specifically are they talking about? Are they talking about all the way out to 211 to the town line? Or are we just talking about the airport itself?
Again, we specifically didn't try to draw lines because as we study, we'll know better what makes sense. And certainly some of that property now has been developed. So it's really looking at the nucleus of the airport and what other dynamics and innovation and airport type businesses might be attracted there, as opposed to the warehouses.
So you're referring to the Dunn Road area? That would be the airport road.
Yes, but back towards 416, I believe, south of Neely Town Road, there's a couple properties there by Storm King.
All right. All right.
But again, it's kind of broad, and it just got impossible to define each property until the study begins. Any other questions? I would ask for a consideration of a motion to,
Are we finished discussion?
let me get the motion, I'll ask for more.
Okay.
Because I think I got a motion from Randy, second to the motion, Matt, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to accept the professional agreement?
I was at first, as Connor described, lukewarm to this. I've been involved in one of these studies before. Cost $400,000, school district to study, do a demographic study. The results were old and useless, and all they did was do research on computers and data that's already stored. Nobody got on the ground and knocked on doors. And I see in here this paragraph that they're gonna do a lot of research and records, but they also, if I'm correct, are gonna do some, what's the saying, boots on the ground?
Yeah, yes.
Try to boots on the ground, to find shovel-ready projects. When I joined this board, I thought that's what this board was designed to do, to study, and if we sit here and do nothing, we're gonna get warehoused to death.
Exactly.
And, you know, just incidentally, I was on the interstate today, and never know where I was, but I saw signs, red signs, be warning, blasting going on. And then I heard the town supervisor on the message that they're blasting from Medline. But, that's beside the point. And other than beside the point, I went to the farmer's market today, and I was very happy to see City Winery there displaying. It's a good sign of community involvement. And I agree with Don about this town seal. I was, when Paul Hellstrom was working on it, I objected to it. I said it should be, we're famous for the Mastodon. That should replace the locomotive. And the first female scientist in the New World, Jane Colden, a botanist, world-renowned, she should be on that seal. Maybe we could attract something other than warehouses, like this. Maybe we use this study to attract science parks, attract office buildings. And I think that when I read it and thought it and spoke to Connor, I think this is important that we say yes to this study.
Thank you, Bob. Any other discussion before I call for the vote? Wait, okay? Any questions then? We're going to call for the vote.
No questions.
And maybe while I got you, I'd start with your vote for or against the study. Okay, Ed has for the record, he's for the study. Bob?
Yes.
Don?
No?
Randy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I'm in favor. We have a 6-1 vote in favor of the resolution to move forward with the Economic Development Corridor Study.
If I could quickly, I'd like to be recognized for 1 second.
Sure, Randy.
I just want to say that we heard tonight that we have no ethics on this board. I've reported people on this and other boards in the last 2 years to the ethics board. I've sat in front of the ethics board myself. I came here as a concerned resident, and this year we have 2 new members on board, John and myself. So to say that there's no ethics on this board means that you don't have any faith still in this board and such faith in John and I. So if you don't trust anybody on this board, put your name in for an application, because I'm doing my best. I'm here to try to take care of and make sure that we are going in the right direction. And you're not going to agree with every decision that we make, but that doesn't mean that we have no ethics. I'm up here to do the right thing, and I'm trying my best, and you might not agree with it, but that's offensive to me.
Thank you, Randy.
May I say something?
Bob?
The chairman of the ethics board was here, he just walked out. He resigned from the ethics board. There's only 3 members remaining on the ethics board. The ethics board did report several times. Nothing was done under the old administration, and we need to reform the Montgomery Ethics Board, so that's
Agreed.
it.
Our next item on the agenda is consideration of an approving resolution for the authorization of the Montgomery IDA State Disaster Grant Program as authorized by New York State. And Connor, I would ask for you to report on behalf of the committee for Don Berger, Matt Stoddard, and Bob Santo. Thank you, everyone, for working on that committee effort. Connor.
Sure. This was an effort I was proud to be part of. With Don, Bob Santo, and Matt Stoddard, we put together a comprehensive grant program to help our small businesses and not-for-profits that have been hindered by COVID-19. So the recommendation from the Small Business Disaster Grant Committee is to allocate $200,000 for grants for small businesses and non-for-profits with less than 50 employees for for the purposes of PPE and fixtures to stop the spread of novel COVID-19. This is a means to help our businesses open and open safely. It means to help our nonprofits open and open safely. I have worked with Volume 8 to make sure our website will be functional, our application page will be functional. We have developed a frequently asked questions document, a program guidelines document, and complied with the statutes given by New York State in an effort to support our small businesses, small nonprofit community. So once again, it's been an honor to be part of that committee, and I think this is work that will directly support our small business community, small nonprofit community that was directly hurt by COVID-19. Matt, Don, Bob, do you have anything to add?
I think we probably should just hash out some of the things that we did decide on this program. So the board is aware, we are going to strictly stick with the grant applications. We're not going to be going into the loan applications at all. The reason for that is I think that the loan application is very cumbersome and vetted and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we have the personnel or the ability to do that at this time. The grant is much simpler, and I think we all agree we should move forward on that. So we have $200,000 that we'll be offering as grants. Kind of put together an application, which I believe what our intentions are is to put that application on the town website and the IDA website.
Yes, it should be on the website tomorrow morning.
Okay, and we suggested perhaps it could get on the 3 village websites. In addition to that, Matt, I think we agreed that perhaps we could put in weekly notices in the Walkill Valley Times at our expense, and to enter an agreement with acquisition marketing to help us out with that. Right? And I think that would be a good idea because we do have to get this information out to the small businesses, so I think that would help out. If we didn't do that, you know, we'd be walking the streets again as we did on that first segment we had, and that was kind of rough. So I think the advertisement and getting this information out would really definitely benefit. The other thing that I just want everybody to understand is that we have, we decided that we want to go with town businesses first as far as purchasing of PPE and sanitizing equipment. And then we broke it down from town, county, region, state, and the U.S. We'll be purchasing nothing outside the U.S.
So as far as who's supplying the PPE
The
to
PPE,
the businesses?
yes.
Will have to be Montgomery, Orange County.
Yes.
In that order.
Okay.
So we're hoping that the town of Montgomery businesses will be able to supply this stuff. We're asking businesses to deal with town of Montgomery businesses first, and then if they can't supply or don't have the product here in town, we'll move on to county, and as we go along. Matt?
Yeah, and speaking to council tonight, it looks like before we had a motion for $200,000 for grant loans. Now, we're not doing that. This is a different form. This is from the executive order from the governor for the PPE. So we had 200,000 and we had 15,000 that we were approved on for the last grant application that we're doing. So what I'm understanding is that we have to do a new motion and get that passed because it's a little bit different. Am I correct, Bob?
So what we talked about before the meeting, you're correct. The only thing I would correct you on is that it's not an executive order. This is actually a statute passed by the legislature, signed by the governor.
Gotcha.
So arguably, this is a little bit better than an executive order. But the board will recall that back in April, there was a discussion of $215,000 to be made available to loans and businesses in anticipation of a program. The agency did not move forward on that for a variety of reasons. The suggestion is to amend that resolution as part of this resolution and determine that $200,000 will be made available for this state emergency disaster program, and up to $15,000, if I understand the discussion correct, for the cost of administration of that program, which will include marketing, the accounting firm that may help us out on determining, may help the executive director out in determining financial liability, which is a requirement of the statute. And then also to make clear that this is the grant program established only for the purchase of personal protective equipment as defined by the CDC, and fixtures that are required for businesses that have to do something to sanitize their location. And then I think the only item, Member Berger, that you did not mention is the fact that I think the committee agreed that the effective date would be the date that the governor signed the legislation, which is June 17th.
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry. So the effective date of when we can reimburse them is
Yes.
that date? So we can't go back prior to the beginning of COVID? 'Cause some of these people invested in all this plexiglass and all this stuff prior.
Well-
Whose decision is that to make?
Well, the council will.
So there, you know, when the pandemic hit, when the disaster was declared, there was no statutory authority to do this type of program. The statutory authority began on June 17th. It's taking almost a month to ramp up, and so I think that the board can make a decision with very little risk to say that if you purchased equipment from June 17th forward, you can get reimbursed for that amount. It's hard to argue credibly that you can reimburse for the businesses for equipment that they purchased prior to June 17th when there was no program.
And Randy, and the board and the town, the subcommittee, we did want to go back, but on advice from council, that felt that we could get challenged, we picked the 17th.
I mean, I think you look at it in stages. From June 17th forward, I think there's extraordinarily little risk to be successfully challenged on a reimbursement. From the 17th to the date that it was introduced or passed the legislature, let's say, which was June 5th, there's a greater risk. If you go beyond June 5th, there's a huge risk because there was no program. And if you go beyond that into March, when the emergency was declared, there's almost a guarantee of criticism and a request from the ABO of the state to return personally from the board members any monies provided for the reimbursement.
I understand, but I don't like that.
I don't either. Yeah, well.
I don't like it, but fine.
Agreed, we did, the subcommittee.
We talked about this a great deal. We did want to go back all the way to March 11th, and I do have the dates here. From March 11th to June 5th, we deem that to be a very high risk.
Okay, I trust you guys.
Then from June 5th to June 17th, medium risk, and then June 17th, we established as the date to go with.
Okay.
We talked about it
Yes,
really a lot.
we wanted to go all the way back.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the agency to establish the state disaster emergency grant program for small businesses with the Montgomery IDA.
With
make that motion.
With the clarification that I will include the 200,000 being made available, amending the April 14th resolution, and up to $15,000 for the cost of administration and marketing of the program.
So we have a motion by John.
I still make that motion.
Okay. Second to that motion by Don. Any other discussion? By a show of, all in favor, please say aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you have to do a roll.
Oh, okay. Try.
Try.
Matt?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Ed Williams, we're voting on the grant program. How do you vote in favor? I vote in favor. We have 7 for, none against. That motion carried. Thank you, Ed. A update on Sailfish closing. Bob, please.
Unfortunately, there is no update.
I was afraid of that.
Nothing has moved. I thought that we were close for June 30th. There were still additional changes. Council was concerned about the capture events referenced in what's called the Uniform Projects Benefit Agreement, as well as some provisions of the lease agreement. So the lease agreement is the agreement that is from the town back to Sailfish. So the first agreement is called an underlying lease. Sailfish leases it to the town, and the second lease agreement, the town leases it back to Sailfish. The lease agreement contains the terms of how Sailfish is going to act during the term of the lease agreement. The statute was amended in 2013, 2012, 2013, to require a form of uniform project benefits agreement. That form, the way the school that I was, there's two ways to do the form. Create a form document that never changes, and you have exhibits, almost like a bank loan document. Or you have an agreement that changes over time, and every agreement says something different. I'm of the school that where the statute says form of, it should be a form. So the form of uniform projects benefit agreement that I use, every project gets the same document. The exhibits change, project description changes, recapture events change, conditions going forward, the commitment to jobs, the commitment to construction jobs, everything changes in the exhibits, but the basic 5 or 6 pages up front, that doesn't change. Because of changes in the lease agreement, primarily because of notice provisions, Sailfish wanted 60 days notice before a default could be declared, and that's acceptable. Other agencies have done that. There was a disconnect between the form of the agreement and the lease agreement. And so what we did was attach an extra exhibit, which I'm happy to circulate to the board members, that states that if there's a conflict with respect to those types of things, the lease agreement will govern. But it also clearly provides that to the extent that there's a conflict between recapture events, the Uniform Project Benefits Agreement govern. And that's important because the two exhibits that talk about the benefits of the project to the town, as well as the recapture events, are the exact exhibits that were part of the approving resolution for this project back on February 14th. And even though they have aggressively tried to change those exhibits, my response has been, if you want to change those exhibits, you have to go back to the board. And they have not wanted to do that. So I think we are close, but I also have told them that unless we have a definitive movement by tomorrow, I am not working on this anymore until everything is finished. I've been through now getting signature pages from the chair in May and in June, and there's just no reason to do this again unless we're actually going to move forward. I do think we're close. I think it'll happen this month, but I can't guarantee it.
What do you mean by you're not gonna work on it anymore? Is there any problem? Do you anticipate any problem?
I don't anticipate any problem.
Around a little hoop here or what?
I don't think that that's the case. I think that there are too many lawyers involved, for lack of a better description. And lawyers do what lawyers do, and everyone has their comments, and that's what we get paid for. I'm getting paid on this by the project, by Sailfish. I'm not getting paid by the agency. I haven't been paid in some time, so.
Now I understand.
My response is, unless I get paid going forward, but I really think, that if, obviously I'm not gonna stop work, but I think.
Don't say that on a live
I
stream,
know,
Bob.
well, that's okay. My interest, I have a fiduciary obligation to the agency to get this done. I'm doing everything I can to get it done. I think we're closer than we were. I'm disappointed that there's always seems to be another comment, you know, and it's at a certain point as lawyers, you're tempted to say pencils down. And then you're also tempted to say that, you know, there's an accuracy which defeats itself by its overemphasis at the tail. You have to stop at some point, and I think we're getting to that point.
What is our recourse if they continue to move in this manner? You know, there's these delays. What's our recourse?
To the extent that they ask for something that's inconsistent with the approving resolution, you can always deny moving forward on a project. None of that has occurred. I would always counsel that they have some more time to get this done. It's their benefits, not yours. There is no pilot. Then again, the pilot really isn't effective until the next state tax date, which is March 1st of next year. There's no sales tax exemption. So everything that they've done on the project from February to date is subject to full freight sales tax because the exemption hasn't been granted yet. They haven't closed.
So dragging their feet is to their detriment.
Absolutely.
There's no construction being done now.
There may, I don't know, I drove by on my way in, it looks like they cleared some land, and it looks like that house, it's getting ready to be moved. There's some bracing, it looks like, on it. And all of that cost is subject to sales tax to the extent that it qualifies as.
So if they do any construction, they could hire non-union people to do the construction at this point.
In theory, but the approving resolution would come into play then. It requires local labor, and they are working with the monitor, even though the monitor hasn't gotten paid yet either. And I think there's a report, they're substantially in compliance. Not fully in compliance, but I think substantially in compliance at this point. They haven't done a lot yet, but I think that to Don's point, to your point, if they were to try to use this as a way to circumvent, we have to change the table. If they were to use this as a way to circumvent the local labor law policy, then I think the agency has an obligation to act. I don't see any indication of that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a note about this, what Bob said. Bob Santo, our labor policy does not require them to be union, just requires them to be local.
Our next item is the June treasurer's report, financial report. Matt, please.
Okay. Checkbook beginning balance from last report, $245,953.60. Checks written, Sue Hayden, $177.99. New York State Economic Development Council, $294. Times Hudson Valley Media published Matrix legal ad, $103.17. The checks for that month were $575.16, bringing the checking account balance to $245,378.44. The Orange Bank and Trust CD, we have $54,633.38. And Orange Bank and Trust the money market, we have $400,900.53, giving us a total in the CDs and the money market of $700,912.13.
Questions for Matt? Motion to accept the June financial report.
I make that motion.
All right, John Dixon, second to that motion, Bob Santo. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Is that there? Yeah. How do you vote on the financial report? The vote for the financial report, 7-4 and none opposed. Under other business, a couple of quickies. The UTEP, you were gonna just keep us online there, Connor?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing in-depth research on UTEPs in the region and updating our UTEP. I'd like to go through the committee structure the same way we went through the small business committee. I think that was efficient. I think it was an expedited process that was also had a lot of depth to it. So moving forward, I would like to mobilize the committee to analyze and deliberate upon updating the UTEP and then make a full recommendation to the board as we just did with the small business committee. So I'll keep on that research process and begin to schedule committee meetings moving forward.
And the executive director and the chair and the members of the agency, I'm obviously available to talk about the changes and attend any meetings that you may ask about the UTEP policy.
Sounds good, thank you. And local labor update, Connor?
Yes, so in your board packets, it's labor numbers. Stewart Holdings Group is 100% local labor compliant. And Sailfish is at the 85% mark, I believe. I have it in front of me. 85%, which is in compliance with our local labor policy. And once again, Stewart Holdings is 100% compliant with local labor.
Thank you, Connor.
Mr. Chair, if I can interrupt.
Yes.
There was a question that came up on Sailfish during the negotiation of that exhibit, which I'm happy to circulate. One of the project benefits, just see if I have it. One of the questions that came up was whether or not, with the 300 construction jobs, and I'm looking at Matt as a member of the audit committee, I think that's responsible for interpretation
Myself, Randy, and others.
of the labor policy. The statement has been made and is part of the approving resolution that they'll have 300 construction jobs.
Yes, sir.
And so one of the questions came up that I have not clarified in the document because I don't think I can because it's part of the approving. But the question is that mean 300 in total over the life of the project or 300 at any given time? So I think one of the concerns is that they've had, whatever the number is, 20 or 30 people there clearing property. And then they may have 20 or 30 people that are working on the house that's being braced to be removed. So let's say they have 50 people that they've employed to date, and obviously most of them, 85% have been local. Some of those 50 may come back in the project to do different things. All right, and others that are also local may come in as well. And I guess the question is the 50 included once or multiple times? I've interpreted it to mean, each person, but it could be each
Are we
job
talking,
position.
are we talking, different contracts?
Yes.
So different contracts would be, if the labor policy, how it's written, is it's per contract.
Okay.
So if it's the concrete contract, and then somebody who's working on the concrete comes back, let's say, and I'm just gonna use structural steel, comes back on the structural steel, that's under a different contract.
But is that person then counted twice?
He's counted
Three
under,
times?
he's counted under the concrete because he's under a different company here, and then comes back under a different company, he's counted under that.
Okay. So in theory, if I work on clearing the land, bracing the house, pouring the concrete, and doing electrical work, I can be counted 4 times.
If it's under 4 different contracts.
Right, okay. I think that's a helpful clarification.
Okay. Good deal. Randy, you had an announcement, public
Yeah.
address?
As Bob mentioned earlier, we had our first town Montgomery Farmers Market today at Town Hall. We're going to continue to have those every Tuesday between 9 and 2. We're also going to be having one on the last Sunday of the month, one in each village, so we can highlight each village. And I think when I sit here, it's my job to invest in job retention and economic development, and in my regular life, I'm a small business owner. So I think that we were very well supported today by the residents and by the employees of the building, and I was very happy to see that, and I hope that that's just an example of more to come, because although this is very important, I think that these small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and we need to support them, and we all worked together very well today. It went off without a hitch, and I think everybody was happy, everybody made some money, and the residents, you know, had access to an open air market that was safe, and I hope to see a lot of support going forward.
I think that's a fantastic thing what you guys are doing.
I will.
Thank you, Randy. Our next scheduled meeting is,
Hold on one second, can I say something on other business also?
sure, go ahead.
I apologize, I interrupted the chair. We spoke for the last couple meetings about changing our time.
That's what I was just getting to, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good,
I
you're
did.
good. Go ahead. Because Connor has a little report for us.
Okay, so then, should I wait?
Yeah, I was gonna say our next scheduled meeting's August 11th, and I would like to, after conversation with several board members, discuss the meeting time. And Randy had suggested we see what other IDAs around the area are doing, so we're not out of a particular time frame that seems to work. And what was your finding, Connor?
So the times are very diverse. For example, Rockland County has their meetings at 8 a.m. The Orange County IDA has their regular meeting at 2 p.m. Town of Walkville has their regular meeting at 3:30 p.m. Port Jervis has it around 5. And then you also have the Ulster County IDA, which has it early in the morning, I believe 11 a.m. So there's really a broad range of meetings across the region that other IDAs are currently doing, particularly in the area. I think the only one, well, there's two, the Newburgh IDA and the City of Middletown IDA have their meetings at 5 p.m. or around 5 p.m. But there really is a broad range from, I've seen everything from 8 a.m. to 5:30.
What are your thoughts with that in mind, Matt?
I know the board had discussed this a couple times, and we had said the number 3 o'clock. I don't know, but how does the board feel about that? Or do I just make a motion?
Well, let's have a little discussion.
Yes, sir.
In talking with Connor and Sue, our secretary, and I presume Bob, it's not the easiest time at 5:30 to have a meeting. It puts us through supper. Sue has a lot of nighttime meetings already, so I think
I'm
there's a lot.
available at any time.
Okay. So I think 3 o'clock's a great time, but it's open for discussion.
The only problem I have with that is every second Tuesday at 3:30, I have an executive board.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I have to.
so that's a direct conflict.
Yeah.
And is our IDA meetings on the what,
And every second Tuesday of the month.
are we on second Tuesdays?
Yeah.
But should we go back to Mondays, because we gotta wait?
It's the planning board, but it's. yeah,
If
that
it's
would be
early.
fine.
Oh, okay, yeah. What's on Wednesdays?
Yeah, that would be-
That's better for you.
I just can't make the next meeting with the. What is it?
What time?
Comprehensive planning board weekend. What time? So, I mean.
We should
when
do that.
Yeah, when do we go more than 2.5 hours, twice a year, maybe?
I have to do both, so I need time to set up.
Is that meeting in this room?
Yeah. It takes place in a different setup,
Oh,
I'm there too.
oh, okay.
That's not good for you, is what
No,
you're
it
saying.
won't happen, you would need time to rearrange everything, because they might be able to set up here, but yes, we would need at least like 15-20 minutes in between, to change over everything. Or we need to do it separately.
Would it be better if we went early?
I'm up at 1 o'clock
1 o'clock would be fine.
on Tuesdays, and get done so you can go to your other meeting?
Yeah, it takes me a half hour to get there.
So, 2:30.
You'd have to leave a few minutes before 3?
I got a lead foot.
What do you think, sir?
Probably better.
Yeah, 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock, okay with everybody?
Don?
I'm good. What about Edmund?
thoughts on moving?
I'm here.
What are your thoughts on moving the meeting to 1 p.m.?
What day of the week?
Tuesday.
Still the second Tuesday.
Yeah, 1 p.m.
That's fine.
Well, we should make a, action on that, Bob?
Yes.
You wanna make a motion, Matt? Motion.
I second
And the motion's for moving our second Tuesday meetings to 1 p.m. each month, which we put August 11th at 1 p.m.
Will not be here.
You're
You're
a
like
troublemaker.
Kevin.
You're entitled to
I'm
go.
not coming here anytime that week.
Okay.
I'll zoom in, I'll call, I'll vote on the phone, but I will not be here. And you get
Okay,
that
but-
house.
I would note that the current executive order
I'm not going
expires.
to no stage, just so you know.
Expires on, I believe it's either August 7th or 8th. So
You might not be able to call it.
you may not be able to call in
Okay.
unless it's extended, so we
Okay.
don't know that.
But there's
I will
gonna
still
be.
not be here.
Oh, okay, I'll call for a vote on that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ed, you in favor?
I'm in favor.
Okay, 7-4, none opposed. Our meeting time should be announced for 1 o'clock. Yes, Don?
Kind of, have you moved forward on this card you talked about last week, last month? Yeah, debit card, whatever.
I've not been looking for places that invoice as opposed to card. Because of the various mechanisms we need to put in place to safeguard the card. Of course, I would never do anything inappropriate, but the board would nonetheless need to have a robust policy. And on top of that, it would also complicate the parish reporting, and add another layer of complexity. So for now, Sue and I are looking for places that will accept invoices to do things such as the minute transcriber. We found a few companies that will work with governments and not-for-profits to invoice for the transcribing service. So we're trying to find innovative ways to avoid using the card for now.
So you're working on
We're working on it. We're making it. We're good.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes, Matt?
One other thing, with the subcommittee that we had, the disaster grant program, I know our executive director is new, but the work that he did with council, we wouldn't have been able to get it done without the two of them, so they did a fantastic job.
Thank you for recognizing both Hunter and Bob on that. Thank you, everybody. It's a neat effort by this board. A motion to adjourn unless there's anything, motion to adjourn. Good. Thanks, Bob. Second?
I second that
Second.
motion.
John, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.